This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Halloween podcast. I am your host, Lyle Perez, and with me, kind of sometimes now, is Megan. Megan, how you doing?
I'm not bad, Lyle. Thanks very much.
Good. And today we have a special guest with us, author Scott Wells. Scott writes horror and thrillers, including his book, Marked by the Ouija, which dives into the mystery of the Ouija board. He also wrote the award-winning screenplay, Phantom Ranch, now being developed into a novel, and he runs the YouTube channel Explore Life Outside, where he shares his adventures in nature. Scott's stories explore the line between what's real and what's hidden, which makes him the perfect person to talk to us about the Ouija board. Scott, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes. So we are going to talk about the Ouija board, and of course, we want to give you a little bit of a history on what the Ouija board is. If you don't know what it is a crazy board game now that you can go basically to any toy store and pick it up, which is kind of insane. But Megan, go ahead and let us know a little bit about what the Ouija board actually is.
Of course. So today we know of the mass-produced Ouija board, originally produced, or in our lifetime anyway. We would have been familiar with Parker Brothers. It's since been sold to Hasbro Toys. But Ouija board itself is evolved from spiritualist practices in the mid-1800s. So spiritualism was very, very popular in the Victorian period. Everything from mediums to seances to talking boards is what they originally called them. They weren't called Ouija at the time. So the idea was that the talking boards were used with a planchette type device. They were generally tied to things like automatic writing, where the person who was using it would receive messages from the spirit world and be able to communicate with different spirits, whether it be the dead or spirit guides, things like that. It was just par for the course in the period. The Victorians were pretty obsessed with all kinds of fortune-telling and spiritualist activity. There were famous spiritualists like the Fox sisters who toured all around the world, made lots and lots of money. That's incidental, right?
Yeah, of course, you got to do that.
Yeah. But yeah, it was eventually patented and made into the game that we know today.
Mm-hmm.
So the Kennard Novelty Company in 1890, under Charles Kennard and other investors, actually mass-produced the talking board for the first time. According to company lore, during a session with the board, the planchette spelled out the word Ouija, which is of course spelled O-U-I-J-A, when asked what it wanted to call itself. And during another session, it later explained that the term was supposed to mean good luck. Elijah Bond then obtained the patent for the Ouija board in February 1891, and it's just been incredibly popular ever since then. As I said, the one that we grew up with was probably the Parker Brothers version, and then it has been sold since then to other companies. It's now owned by Hasbro Gaming, I believe.
Yes, Hasbro is the one who has it. But I mean, the Ouija board is basically just a wood or a cardboard cutout with a bunch of letters on it, a bunch of numbers, and a yes, no, and goodbye. I've never used a Ouija board. Have you used one, Megan?
I did use a Ouija board when I was little. So, of course, it's one of those things. It was made by Parker Brothers. What was the harm? So somebody got one. I think it might have been an aunt of mine, and we played with it. And of course, the first thing we asked it was the lottery numbers.
Of course, that's the first thing you got to ask it
Of
for.
course. And we did actually,
Yes.
we did actually win just a very little bit. It was one of those things where you got like more of the numbers than not, and I think we got a very small win. Nothing life-changing, good or bad, thank goodness. But yeah, that was my one and only brush with the Ouija board. I'm a little bit more reticent to use them now that I'm older and have heard and learned more things. But yeah, that one time.
Perfect. What about you, Scott? You wrote a whole book on the Ouija board. So what's your experience with the Ouija board?
So my experience, it started. I loved Halloween from a very young age. And funny story. I grew up in a small town in Idaho. It's a farming community. It was very Mormon. I grew up Mormon, which is really interesting to think that, now I wrote a book about my personal experience with a Ouija board. But my love of Halloween and the dead and the other side and just the not really understanding everything, but having a strong desire to learn started when I was, I'll say, probably about 8 or 9 years old. And a little funny story, it was a Halloween party, and don't ask me why, but my costume was I had a dress, and I never wore a dress before, and my friends kept flipping my dress up to see my underwear, and I was so humiliated, mortified. I ran out in the cornfield and waited until my mom came back. So after that experience, I had nothing to do with Halloween for years until this experience. And this experience actually brought me back, and it's turned into a lifelong obsession, not only with the lore and the history of it, but it's just people's personal experience and how it has actually affected their lives. I try to live my life, helping others and trying to make, do what I can in with what I can to help make the world a better place. And, this follows that. So when I first come across the Ouija board, it was a Parker Brothers. It was a cardboard game with a plastic planchette, and I found it at a local variety store, which was interesting because the town that I grew up in was so small. We knew everyone. I mean, the closest or the biggest store there was an old Kmart that it seemed like half the store was going out of business. The next closest town where they had any sort of shopping was about 45 minutes away. So it was really kind of remarkable that I was able to even find one there. But I found it, and the experience that I had from it turned into more than just a ghost story. It was a story. It was an experience that initially lasted over 12 hours, but has lasted 38 years since that first experience. My experience includes an unsolved murder. It includes a direct threat from the board that left my friend dead.
Wow.
Yes, it is a crazy story. Marked by the Ouija it explores all of this. It tells the story, and it's very important to me that I want to be able to share I want it to be as truthful and honest as possible while still protecting the people involved. So that's where the fictionalized aspects come in. But it's a story about secrets and betrayal, and the spirit that we were talking to was just trying to help his sister from the man who ended up killing him. And he had asked my friends for help, and they freaked out. They were using my board. They freaked out and ended up burning the board. And the next morning, I walked out of my house. I wasn't there at the time. I was working. The next morning, I walked out of my house, and there was a brand new board sitting on top of the garbage can where they had burned it. And the night before, when I got home, when I got home from work, they had called and told me their experience, and it was bone chilling, when I think about it now. But at the time, I didn't believe them. I didn't believe in Ouija. I'd heard the stories. Everyone hears the stories. But until you actually experience the power and the overwhelming terror that can come from it, you don't understand what can happen from it. So when they told me that, and then told me that they had burned the board in a metal garbage can behind my house, I think I was annoyed that they had invaded my privacy and went into my room and took it. But I think I was more annoyed that they actually got to play with it before I did. Like, it was mine. I should be playing with it first. But when I got home from work, I smelled the lighter fluid. I saw the ash in the bottom of the garbage can. The garbage can was up next to the house, and it was a white house, and there were smoke marks all the way up the side of the house to the eaves, because that fire must have been, they used a full bottle of lighter fluid on it. And the next morning when I walked out to go to school, there was no hint of lighter fluid. There was not one trace of ash in the garbage can or on the house. And there was a brand new Ouija board sitting on top of the garbage can.
Wow.
It was, now I look back, obviously, like what you had said earlier, Megan, is like, you know what, you played with it younger, now being older and understand more about it, you don't want to play with it. And that's the same thing here. That day when I went to school, I thought my friends that had played with it earlier in that night were playing a joke on me. And so when I saw them at school, I'm like, you guys are good. I'm like, that's Academy Award prank stuff. I mean, that was amazing. And I've told this story thousands of times, and I've written. I still get goosebumps when I think it takes me back to that experience. That it's 38 years later, and I still relive that experience. But when I saw them in the hallway, they turned around to me and saw me coming, and I'm like, that was a great prank. And both of them, their faces went white. They told me, stay away from us. To this day, they have never spoken to me. They will not have anything to do with me. Wow. Their experience terrified them. And their experience is in the book, exactly the way that they told it, that they shared it with me. And then a week later, I decided, all right, well, I got two friends together and I had my experience, and that turned out to be far more than I would have ever imagined. In a lot of cases, the truth is actually more terrifying than what people can make up, fiction. And I had no clue that when I asked my friends to play this board that I thought was burned, I had no clue what would happen. but two of us made it through, and one of us unfortunately didn't. I felt guilty. I felt a tremendous amount of guilt for years that it was my board and it was my friend that lost his life as a threat. It was a direct threat from the board, and it told him, if you don't help my sister, you will die the same way that I died. And we tried everything we could, and we were 16. We're not the Hardy Boys. We didn't know what we were doing, and so we weren't able to solve or help his sister. And 2 years to the date that threat came through, my friend lost his life exactly how Peter is the spirit we were talking to said that he would lose his life. Exactly 2 years to the date.
Was Peter the actual board's name or the spirit, or did you change that?
No, that is. I figured, that is, that is the actual name. All of the other names have been changed, but Peter is the name. And Peter had told us that as soon as we started playing with it, I say playing with it, but like we were talking, like you mentioned earlier, Megan, it's mass produced. It's in Target, Walmart.
I think what harm? Yeah,
it is, and the age limit is 8 years and above, which I find absolutely bizarre. It's I don't understand that, but when we took it out and started playing with it, Peter, first one that came through, and of course the first question is, what's your name? How did you die? I died in a car accident. My name's Peter. I'm 16, and then he immediately went into, you have to save my sister. My sister is bound and gagged. She's locked. She's locked in a boarded up house in town, and the kidnapper is going to kill her and burn the house down.
Do you love the strange, the unexplained, and the downright terrifying? Horrifying History takes you on a chilling journey into the dark corners of the past, where history and horror collide. From haunted places and ghostly legends to unsolved mysteries and terrifyingly true stories, you will uncover the twisted facts that history books leave out. Who were the real monsters behind infamous legends? What dark secrets lie buried in the pages of history? Every episode, we reveal the eerie truths that will send shivers down your spine. Are you brave enough to face the darkness? Horrifying History, available now wherever you listen to your podcasts. But don't wait for too long. The past might just come looking for you. Listen if you dare.
And again, being a small town, we knew everybody. I'm like, there is not a boarded up house in town. It's a farming community. The area of town where Peter said this house was nothing but fields, was potato fields. And, so we didn't believe it. And then he actually gave us an address. He gave us a physical address, and we thought, let's check it out. So we drove over there, and I'll be damned, there was a boarded up house that I'd never seen before. And that started it was over 12 hours experience. We started playing about, I want to say it was around Sunday afternoon, around 5 p.m. At 8 p.m. on Monday morning, we obviously realized we're skipping school the next day. And at this point, we had been to the house. We had done everything we could. We tried pulling the boards off. We tried calling Chastity's name. That was the name that his sister's name was. We looked for footprints. We listened for noises. At one point, it was throughout the night, because we kept going back and forth. First time we went and looked around, and we came back, and immediately, before we even asked a question, the planchette started circling the board, and it said, she's there, go back. And, we're like, this is a joke. We did not believe it. And so this happened multiple times. And at one point, it was the middle of the night, and I'm an event planner. I plan things out, so I'm like, all right, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, and I'm going to do this. We're going to cover all of our bases. We're going to make sure that we search this scene. And if this is true, we're going to solve it. We're going to figure it out. And while we were doing that, we saw headlights that was driving really slow toward the house. The house was on a corner, and the headlights were driving down the road, and it was just odd. It's a small town. I don't remember what time it was. I know it was the middle of the night, and one of my friends said, well, what if this is true? And what if the kidnapper is inside and he follows us back? And what if that car that's slowly driving toward us is the kidnapper?
Wow.
And so we ducked, we hid, and that car drove right up and stopped right next to the house. I was the closest to the road, and I could not see who was inside, but I distinctly remember that it was a large silhouette, and he was smoking, because my dad smoked, and as he moved around, I could see the ash of the end of the cigarette moving around. And I don't remember how long he was there. I mean, it seemed like forever, but we did not move. Obviously we were terrified. And when the car drove away, I convinced myself that it was one of the neighbors that had seen some, kids out, and they thought we were vandalizing the house. And, so I still didn't believe it. And, and this lasted the entire night. The next day, we went back. The last time we went to the house, it was dawn, and we came back to the board. We're like, all right, we've been there multiple times. This isn't true. There's no girl trapped inside. She's not, we would have heard something. We would have seen tracks. I spent a lot of time outdoors. So, I used to be a lot better than I am now. I used to be really good at tracking animals, and I didn't see any tracks. There was no sign. The house was very dilapidated. The fence was falling over. There was an awning over the back porch, and that was sagging. It was clear that this house hadn't been inhabited in quite some time. But we ended up going back to the house, and we obviously went right back to the board, and that's when the planchette started moving, and it said, if you do not help my sister, and it actually said my friend's name. In the book, it's Trent. If you do not help my sister, Trent, you will die the same way I died. And that was hard to explain, and it's also worth it to note that the two friends that I was playing with were brothers. They were fraternal twins that lived 2 doors down from me. And so they know each other. I mean, I knew them very well. They knew me very well, but they knew each other extremely well. And, whenever someone starts playing with a board everyone, oh, you're moving the planchette. Oh no, you're moving it. You're moving it. They didn't do that because they knew each other so well. But when that threat came through, we decided, all right, well, what else can we do? So we went to the local newspaper and we thought, you know what, let's go look in the microfiche room. And we spent 2 hours in there searching obituaries for a 16-year-old named Peter who had died in a car accident, just to see if we could corroborate that story. Because if we could find an obituary that proved that he is who he says he is, then we've got a problem. But if we didn't and we couldn't, it's just a joke, we don't, but we couldn't. And, that was a huge relief for us. We're like, whoo, all right, this is great. However, Trent was unusually quiet. And after his brother, in the book, it's his sister. In the book, it's Darcy. And Trent had said, well, we didn't ask him if he died here. If he died in another town, it wouldn't be here. And we thought, oh, you're absolutely right. So at that point, I'm like, we're going to the sheriff. There's only one sheriff in town. We're going to the sheriff. Of course, he didn't believe us. He knew my parents. He lived a block and a half from my parents, and he knew that if my dad knew that I was skipping school, he was going to beat my butt. And he told me, he said, Scott, if you don't go to school, I'm going to take you to school in your cruiser, and then I'm going to call your dad, and you won't walk straight for a month, which is true. So we forgot about it. We went to school and forgot about it. And 10 years later, I was home visiting my parents, and my mom was one of those mothers that saved every Mother's Day card that I made for her from first and second grade on, every trophy, every ribbon. There's stories that I wrote in second grade that she saved that are actually on my website, which is actually kind of funny because I was reading through them and I thought, you know what? If someone didn't know that there was a Mormon 8-year-old boy that wrote this, they would be convinced that I was on acid. I mean, it crazy stories, but they're on the website, and she saved those. But I was going through this drawer and I got to the very bottom and I saw a stack of papers that was about the size of Post-it notes sticking out from underneath the bottom of the drawer. And, I'm like, what in the world is that? So clearly, whoever put them in there was trying to hide them, but they took the drawer, put them in, and, so I pulled it out and my blood ran cold. It was the notes that I took from that experience. Wow. And it was everything that he had said, that Peter had said, every question we had asked. I think I'm pretty detailed, so I had a lot of information there, and so I read it, and I again, like I do now, I got goosebumps, and I remembered someone saying that my two friends were in town as well. They were back visiting their parents, so I went over to their house, and I was talking to Darcy in the story, and we caught up for a few minutes, and I said, "Oh, where's Trent? I'd love to talk to Trent." And she said, "Oh, you didn't hear?" I'm like, "What?" And she said, "Trent died." And I said, "Well, excuse me?" I said, "When did he die?" And she said, "It's a day I will never, ever forget. He died," and she gave me the date, and she said he died on this date in a car accident. Mm-hmm. And it's hard. It takes a lot to make me speechless. Mm-hmm. And because I just read those notes an hour before, and I looked at her and I said, Darcy, do you remember that night? As far as I got. And she looked at me and her jaw just dropped. Her face went white. I'll never, ever forget it. And she looked at me and she said, I do remember. And she said, and you know what? That house burned down too.
Wow.
And it's a crazy story. And I when I found that out, that's when that's when the guilt started. And for years, I felt guilty that it was my board, that I'm the one invited them to play. And Trent ended up losing his life because we could not help Peter's sister Chastity. And that guilt lasted for years until I started writing this book. And when I wrote this story, it didn't happen at once, but once I started to understand why that threat came through and why Trent lost his life, I didn't feel guilty anymore, because it was it shows the true power of the board, and you never know who you're talking to. And I don't want to give the story away, but Trent had involvement with that board before, without my knowledge, before he played it with us. And that is, he disrespected the board, and that was the board coming after him. So it is not, the board's not it's not an 8-year-old game. It's not a game to play or to be taken lightly. The other side, as you guys know, the other side, they want to connect with us so bad. They will. I've talked to thousands of people around the world that have shared their stories with me, and you don't need, like what you were saying, Megan. It didn't start out with a cardboard board and a plastic planchette, and it doesn't take a Ouija board to connect with the other side. It doesn't take a pendulum. It doesn't take a medium. There was a girl I spoke with that she wanted to play it. She couldn't find one, and she printed off from Google a Ouija board template, and that worked. And so it's something that should be taken seriously. And because of the thousands of people that I've talked to, and there have been, since the book has come out, there's been a couple of other projects that have spawned from it. Because the book is so twisted, and the story and the experience is so twisted and crazy, and it's true. We wanted to invite fans to join us in this experience. There are millions of Halloween fans and paranormal and horror enthusiasts and thriller enthusiasts, and so we wanted to invite them to join in the experience with us. And so we started a Kickstarter campaign. It's called Marked, and so, which is active now. There's about 2 weeks left for anyone that would like to, as we say, join the seance. And what we're doing with that is we're trying to raise awareness to get to help people understand the true power of the board. If there's one thing I've learned from talking to all of these people, is 100% of the people that have true, authentic Ouija board experiences, that have followed the rules, followed the protocol, they've never had a negative experience. However, 100% of the people that have had experience that have never followed the rules or never followed the protocol, including myself, because we didn't know, every single one of them have had a negative experience. And there are thousands of people out there, I'm sure more than that have had experiences that don't feel comfortable or haven't been able to share those experiences or talk about it because of being ridiculed or judged, or in many cases thrown out of their families, and their friends won't talk to them. And so they have to live with that. And so it's really important to me from this book, and also for this Kickstarter campaign, to get the conversation into a public arena, a public platform where people can talk about this, and where these people that are suffering with their personal experiences can express how it's made them feel, and hopefully just talk about it in a very safe space, and be able to live the rest of their life without something following them, with something attached to them, without looking over their shoulder. And that's something that I'm really proud of, that it seems I didn't expect, but there seems to be I seem to have created a safe space for people to share those experiences. And that's something I'm very proud of. And that's something for anyone that would like to participate in this, and to be able to get involved with the story and the experience. We would love to have them check out the Kickstarter campaign. There's some really cool things. There's 2 opportunities where they can join us on set while we're filming. There are opportunities where they can get a signed script. There is opportunities where they can get their name in the film. But the overall purpose of the film is to get it out there, to create a public dialogue to where these people that are suffering can move past the trauma that they felt and live happy, healthy lives.
Nice. Well, yeah, if you guys want, check it out. There will be a link in the show notes to it if anybody's interested.
Do you love the strange, the unexplained, and the downright terrifying? Horrifying History takes you on a chilling journey into the dark corners of the past, where history and horror collide. From haunted places and ghostly legends to unsolved mysteries and terrifyingly true stories, you will uncover the twisted facts that history books leave out. Who were the real monsters behind infamous legends? What dark secrets lie buried in the pages of history? Every episode, we reveal the eerie truths that will send shivers down your spine. Are you brave enough to face the darkness? Horrifying History, available now wherever you listen to your podcasts. But don't wait for too long. The past might just come looking for you. Listen if you dare.
So do you see your book in the Kickstarter as an extension of that, is kind of a cautionary tale to sort of warn people, especially young people, about getting involved with these things, that they probably really don't understand? Or do you see it in a different way?
So yes, the short answer is yes. So I when I wrote the book, I didn't expect to have the response that it did. And as we know, when you're dealing with Ouija boards and the occult and the paranormal, there are very, very strong opinions and feelings on both sides. After the book came out, after it launched about 3.5-4 months ago, and I was promoting the book, I received several death threats.
Wow.
And that really freaked me out. I wasn't prepared for that. I looked over my shoulder for a couple of weeks, making sure I wasn't followed. And I took everything off my website, off my social media, that would give any indication what part of the country or the world I was in, because it really freaked me out. I thought, you just never know, because people are so passionate about different things. And I just got to the point where, you know what? if no one stands up for these people that are having these experiences and that don't have a place to talk about it or to get over their experience, then it's never going to change. So that's one thing that I feel that the book does, is the more we talk about it and the more people like yourselves open up a platform to be able to discuss it, then the more it becomes less scary and more educational. One of the things, for the different shows and events and again, from the messages that I've gotten worldwide, there are a staggering amount of people who have never used the board. They're fascinated by it, that are interested in it for a variety of reasons. Some want to connect with loved ones. Some want the experience of, that spine tingling. Some want, they thrive on that. Whatever the reason is, my one of the things from this book that I want to I would love, and also for the short film, hopefully we'll be able to get enough backers and we'll be able to make the film, but is to educate people. Look, if you're going to use the board, that's your own decision. Everyone makes their own decision. That's free will, free speech. You make your own decision, but please use it responsibly. And so we've actually created a little pamphlet. It's called the Ouija Safety Guide, that anyone that actually joins our Substack there's free subscriptions and there's the paid subscription. If you're a paid subscription, you can actually download a free copy of that Ouija safety guide, and that will list out every rule, every step in that protocol that you should take should you choose to use the board, and that will protect you as best as it can to where you could actually use it and limit the opportunity for an experience like mine or a negative experience. So I do want this book and this short film, and we're also doing one of the other projects that have spawned from it is we're doing a TV series where we're actively interviewing others that have had true, authentic experiences, and we're putting it together, and we've got quite a few networks interested already. We already have the first season finished, but we're still looking for more people that are interested or willing to share their true, authentic experience on camera. So if there's anyone out there that has had an experience and is looking for a safe space to be able to talk about it without the fear of being judged or ridiculed or mocked or humiliated, you can always go to my website at scottwellsauthor.com, share your story there, and we'll reach out and I also have other resources for some of the more serious cases that hopefully can help some of these people move past their trauma, move past their experiences.
Nice. Yeah. If you guys have any Ouija board stories you guys want to share, feel free to go over to his website. I will put another link in the show notes for that. We did kind of briefly mention that there is, I guess, rules about a Ouija board. Can you elaborate a little bit on what the actual rules are of a Ouija board?
Absolutely. So the one that most, I'm going to say probably 95% of people don't know about, is you should always end the session by saying goodbye. You don't take your fingers off the planchette. You don't just, all right, we're done. All right, let's put the board back in the box and just walk away. You have to close that session. And the best way to close that session is to say goodbye and let the board, once the board, the planchette, the board will say goodbye. At that point, you know that connection is closed. If you don't close that section, that session, then that leaves that open for a variety of, limitless. There's countless ways that of things that could happen from that. So first and foremost, always end the session by saying goodbye. Never play alone. Ever, never. There was a story a girl we interviewed for the series, and she knew never to play alone, but she did it anyway. And she not only did she do it once, she did it twice, and she is dealing with that today. It's been about 11 years later, and she's still dealing with that mistake. Another rule that not many people know about is you should never utilize the board when you're feeling vulnerable, when you're sad, when you're feeling angry, when you're feeling tired or exhausted. When you're weak, that's an opportunity, and you open up that session, you open up that portal, that's an opportunity for whatever is going to come through that portal, that session, to take advantage of your vulnerability, of your weakness. And the weaker you become, the stronger it becomes. There was a man that I spoke with that he was at a show just a couple of weeks ago, well, maybe 6 weeks ago, and it was a haunters show, a Halloween haunters show, and he and his wife walked past my booth, and his wife stopped and said, "I'm a Catholic. I'm not interested in talking to you. I don't want anything to do with this." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, thank you." And her husband said, "Honey, why don't you keep walking? I want to talk to this man." And he waited. I watched him wait until she walked far enough away to where she could not hear him. And he turned to me and he shared a story with me that I'll never forget. The story he shared was he was 4 or 5 years old. He's 50 now. He's 55 now. He was 4 or 5 years old, and his uncle brought a Ouija board into their house and played with it. He didn't play with it, his uncle did. It's been 50 years, and something has attached to him that he's been living with for 50 years. And I asked him, I said, "So what signs, what has changed? How do you know?" And his wife, and this explained why she had such a strong response. He said, "My wife will wake me up in the middle of the night, and I am speaking, I'm talking in my sleep, I'm speaking in a language that no one recognizes. And the tone of my voice is very gruff. It's not my voice." His voice was very smooth. It was very calming. And he's like, "That's not my voice." And she would wake him up. She recorded it and played it for him. And according to what he said, they've played it for other people. No one understands what that language is. No one can tell the dialect, where the origin of that voice, that language comes from. But he was going to go home and get it and bring it back. But he didn't make it back, unfortunately. But we talked about different things. I said, "Well, so what are you doing about it?" He said, "I ignore it." I'm like, ignoring it is not really the answer, because eventually it's going to wear you down. And the weaker you get, the stronger it gets. And it's going to affect your marriage. It's going to affect your kids. It's going to affect your grandkids. I said, "You've lived with it for 50 years. You have years and years and years left of life where you could live a life where you don't have to deal with this." And I gave him a couple of suggestions, but he was too terrified. He's like, "I'm just going to keep ignoring it." And there's stories and stories about that. You don't even have to play with the Ouija board if there's someone that is close to you in that same space. that is playing. There's another girl that we're trying to talk to. We'd love to interview her for this weekly series, and she has a story that will blew my mind. It'll blow your mind. Her and her two friends. It was a stereotypical teenage girl slumber party. They break out a Ouija board at 3:00 in the morning. Oh, let's play, and they were excited. And as soon as they put their fingers on the planchette, and things started happening, one of the girls got up and just walked out of the room. She took her fingers off the planchette and got up and walked out of the room. And they thought, oh, she's just going to the bathroom, not a big deal. That was 11 years ago, and she has not been seen or heard from since.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's and that's another rule of the safety rules is you do not take your fingers off that planchette. Once you put your fingers on the planchette, the only time you take those off is when you close out that session and say goodbye, and make sure that that session is closed and that there is nothing lingering in that space anymore. There's other things that you can do. You can get sage. There's salt. There's a variety of things. But if you choose to use it, I don't condone it. I've never used it since. But if I could help people understand the power and the risks and the danger of this by sharing my experience and by sharing this Kickstarter campaign, by showing them, hey, learn from our mistakes. Don't make those mistakes yourself. Because once you make those mistakes, they can have lifelong lasting effect. And I've seen it firsthand, and I don't want that.
Yeah.
I don't want that for anyone.
Yeah, Ouija board's a hard pass for me. Now that I'm older and sort of understand more about it. I think for me, I know you're saying you had this tremendous guilt for a lot of your life because you felt that your friend had died because you guys couldn't help the spirit's sister. But the bottom line is you never actually know who it is that's coming through the Ouija board. It can tell you something, but it doesn't make it true. It can say I'm a dead 16-year-old kid, but actually it could be something demonic.
You're
Nobody has any control over that. So I'm just I'm good.
Do you love the strange, the unexplained, and the downright terrifying? Horrifying History takes you on a chilling journey into the dark corners of the past, where history and horror collide. From haunted places and ghostly legends to unsolved mysteries and terrifyingly true stories, you will uncover the twisted facts that history books leave out. Who were the real monsters behind infamous legends? What dark secrets lie buried in the pages of history? Every episode, we reveal the eerie truths that will send shivers down your spine. Are you brave enough to face the darkness? Horrifying History, available now wherever you listen to your podcasts. But don't wait for too long. The past might just come looking for you. Listen if you dare.
No, you're absolutely right. There's a scene in the book where my two friends that were the first two that played with it that ended up burning the board. There's a scene in the book where the spirit that they were talking to was kind of like a precursor to my experience. And there's another couple that we interviewed for the series. They use the board on a weekly basis. They consult the board on a weekly basis. They were interested in the board from there was an old 18th or a French priest from the 1800s, and he lived in a very small farming community, a rural community. Lived in the church. Of course, priests don't have a lot of money. It's certainly not back in the 1800s. Overnight, this priest, the town woke up, and this priest had more money than he could have bought that town 10 times over. And no one understood why or how that happened or where that came from. Well, years later, over 100 years later, the story is out, and one of the guys that I was talking to was curious, and that was his purpose of using the board, is he wanted to talk to this priest. And in talking, hey, I'm looking at speaking with this specific person. And it's the same way if you're looking to speak with a loved one. It's exactly like you said, Megan. You never know who you're speaking with. It could be someone pretending to be your grandmother. It could be someone pretending to be this French priest. The only way, and it's not a sure proof or foolproof way, is, and I have talked to people who strongly believe that they have connected with their loved ones, but they asked multiple, on different levels, very specific questions that only that person, only those two people would know. There's still no guarantee that you're speaking with that person. So, it's just be careful,
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like jumping back to episode 27 that we just did, the exorcism of Roland Doe. That was how his story started. His aunt got him interested in the Ouija board, and when she died, he tried to reach out to her using the Ouija board, and something else more sinister came through, and it took 30 exorcisms to make his life whole again. But yeah, it's wild when you think about it.
Yeah, but fortunately for him, he went on to live a pretty good life, and he contributed to NASA, if I remember correctly.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. His story is what I'm hoping, marked by the Ouija and marked the Kickstarter campaign, the short film, and by talking about it, it will help other people move past like he did, and to be able to live a happy, productive life. Everyone deserves that. And if there's anything that I can do to help that, especially in this area and genre that is so that freaks so many people out, that that all of us, we're standing up talking about it, and that helps. That helps greatly.
Well, speaking of freaking out, people from the Halloween podcast know that I don't scare easily. I'm a very skeptical person. Like, to me, I'm full of, well, it could be this, it could be that. Like, I'm pretty sure just because somebody has a Ouija story doesn't necessarily mean that it's real. Is there a way that you kind of are able to weed out the people that are just making up stories versus the people that might actually have a story? Like, what kind of sparked it was, a little bit ago you mentioned that there was a story, or somebody told you the story about these girls that were playing the Ouija board, and then one hasn't been seen since. If I remember correctly, that was a episode of Beyond Belief where there was these girls that were playing the Ouija board. They got into something. One of them left, and they burned the board, and that girl was never ever seen ever again. And if I remember correctly, that story was fictional according to Beyond Belief. I don't know if you guys ever seen that show, but that was a made up story. And then when you said that, I was like, okay, that's very similar. So I guess I mean somebody can definitely just just make up stories and pass them off as real. So how good is your I guess your BS meter when it comes to the Ouija board? Because to me it's all over the place. Like yeah, I mean, there's like, you seem like a very genuine person. Like, I can believe something happened because of the way you're telling the story. But then there's other people that I've talked to that I'm like, yeah, this person's is full of it. Like, how do you go about weeding out the people that are more than likely just sensationalizing something small?
That is a great question, and thank you for asking that. It's the first time I've been asked that, so I appreciate it. So I have heard, like I mentioned, thousands of stories, and not all of them. I don't believe all of those. I'm one of those people, and I always have been, that I have to see it to believe it, or I have to experience it to believe it. I can't say that I believe in Bigfoot. I can't. I think that there's evidence out there about aliens. But I haven't seen it myself. But I'm not ruling that out. When it comes to the paranormal and Ouija board experiences, I'm not arrogant enough to think that I know everything, because I don't. I think that the world is so much bigger than any of us could ever imagine. And I believe exactly what you were saying, Lyle, is the mind is fascinating. You can hear something 20, 30, 40 years ago, and you can believe that it happened to you, when it didn't. So when it comes to my BS meter, when I look back and think back to some of the stories that I didn't believe, I think one of the biggest, the first signs for me is, do I feel it? Do they... Are they selling the story to me? Because there's a way, I believe, that someone can sell a story. I mean, if you're trying to sell a story, then there's a chance that it's probably not true. But if because you're sometimes you're giving, it's your eye contact. It's I feel chills and goosebumps, and with my experience and with several other experiences, but I don't feel that with everyone. I mean, there's was a show in Austin, the World Oddities Expo a couple of weeks ago over Labor Day, and there were these three girls that came in, and two of the girls had an experience, and they were kind of bouncing off each other. I'm like, they were kind of giggling, and early 20s, and oh yeah, this happened, and then this happened, and this happened, and I didn't feel that. I'm like, I don't believe this. I think I didn't buy it, because I didn't feel anything. So for me personally, I think that's the first thing is if I can. If it's something that I feel resonates with my soul, then I'm more inclined to believe it. But it's also some of their eye contact, their movement, how they talk about it. Are they very specific in it? I 100%. I do believe that there are. Case in point. I started writing a story. This was probably 25 years ago or something like that. I started writing a story about a dream that I had. And I thought, oh, this is a really interesting story. And I got probably, maybe a third of the way through. And I was telling someone about it, and they're like, come on now, Scott. You didn't have a dream about that. That story is a Sally Field movie called Bring Back My Baby, or Don't Take My Baby. And I'm like, I've never seen the movie, so I had to go watch it. And when I watched it, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what I drew. But I don't remember seeing that. So I know that happens.
Yeah.
And I don't, but again, when it comes to the paranormal and the Ouija board, I don't believe that I have a gift by any means, but I do believe, because I had this experience and my friend is dead because of it, and the house burned down. There's just too many things. And on the flip side, the unsolved murder that is part of the story, I believe the sheriff had something to do with it. I can't prove it, but I believe the sheriff had something to do with it. And so that is also in the story of why and how that all ties together. But I think when someone tells me something and shares an experience with me, we do a lot of meet and greets before we choose to interview someone for the TV series. And the main reason we do those meet and greets is to see, number one, if their story is authentic, if their story is accurate, if it fits in with the format. And there's quite a few that we just don't buy, but I also believe that there's no surefire way, because everyone has their own experience. I've never had a baby. I've never been through childbirth. I've never experienced that, but I know it's real. So there's a lot of things out there that I don't know. But for me personally, it comes down to their physical, how they're when they're telling me the story, what they're doing and how I feel. And then I'll ask questions. I'll ask follow-up questions. And if I feel like they're giving me some BS, I'm like, there was a guy at that World of Oddity show. There was a guy, he's like, I'm an author too. And I said, oh, that's fantastic. And he said, he was 18. He said, I wrote 5 books in 3 days. I'm like, what? So I looked him up, and all of them were AI books. And, he stalked me for a while, and he was like, let's collaborate. I'm like, nah, I don't think so, but it's for me, it's a feeling,
Okay.
Do you love the strange, the unexplained, and the downright terrifying? Horrifying History takes you on a chilling journey into the dark corners of the past, where history and horror collide. From haunted places and ghostly legends to unsolved mysteries and terrifyingly true stories, you will uncover the twisted facts that history books leave out. Who were the real monsters behind infamous legends? What dark secrets lie buried in the pages of history? Every episode, we reveal the eerie truths that will send shivers down your spine. Are you brave enough to face the darkness? Horrifying History, available now wherever you listen to your podcasts. But don't wait for too long. The past might just come looking for you. Listen if you dare.
So Scott, here's a question. I know you're big on promoting sort of the rules of the Ouija board as a safety measure. There is a school of thought that assuming that whatever you're reaching out to, you can't sort of pinpoint ID who they are or what they are. Certainly if something darker were to come through, the rules are really only there to kind of lure you into complacency and make you feel safe coming back again and again and again. No more than you're saying there's a couple that consult it, is it every week or every month? But you're never really in control when something like that finds you, that possibly might never have found you if you hadn't played with the Ouija. Like, what would be your thoughts on that sort of train of thought?
I 100% agree. Just because someone is saying who they are, I mean, I do believe that I believe that there's two types of ghosts, if you will, or entities, and and I'm speaking specifically for the Ouija board. There are spirits that their intent is harm, is damage, it's control, it's to get into this life and create as much chaos and havoc as possible. I also believe that there are spirits and entities that are trying to get through, that are trying to either find a way to pass on. They're trying to fix something. They're asking for help, or they're trying to. It comes down to good and bad. I believe that there's both. And I believe that when you're first playing it initially, it's hard to tell the two, because they're all going to come across, oh, I'm your friend, help me, and but once you get deeper into it, and especially if you utilize it again and again and again, and that same spirit continues to come back, you're going to notice different things about that personality, because they do have personalities, and but it's a crapshoot, and that's why I say I don't recommend anyone using it, not to connect with a loved one, certainly not for entertainment value. The best that I can do is, hope that someone learns from my mistake and stays away from it. But that's a great question, because you never know who they all come across as friendly, and once they gain your trust, especially after multiple connections with that entity, you start to think, oh, we're friends. Oh, I can tell them anything. So then you start sharing personal information that they can turn around and use against you later on. So, again, it comes back to, pay attention. Don't give any personal information. Think of them as, in our life, the scammers, they'll take what you have, and the information you give, and use it against you for your harm. And the other side is the same way, just a lot more powerful.
Wow. Yeah, and I guess with that, that was a pretty good discussion that we had on the Ouija board. But before we let you go, Scott, I have one little thing that I kind of want to share with you. I've never played the Ouija board. I have zero interest in playing a Ouija board, not because I'm scared of it, but because it doesn't. I have zero interest in a Ouija board. But I do remember when I was a little kid, probably it had to have been in 96-ish or so. I was about 10 years old or something like that. And we were at a family party, and a bunch of my cousins, we were all hanging out at one of my cousins' house, and they were sitting there scribbling a bunch of stuff on a paper. They were actually, I guess they were making their own Ouija board. Like, that's basically what they were doing. And I remember another one of my cousins, because I was just sitting there like watching them do this thing, and they were going to ask it questions, yada yada. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. Then my cousin comes up, and he goes, he says something along the lines of, look at what you're teaching your young cousin, meaning me. I was just sitting there watching them. So they all just told me to go away. And I find it funny that the name of my cousin that said that, his name's Peter.
Really?
Yeah, it was my cousin Peter. I remember it vividly. He comes in and he's like, "Look at the things that you're teaching your little cousin over here." Yeah, and that was my cousin Peter. So
Well,
I figured that's a good way to end this discussion.
Tell your cousin Peter to be careful when he's driving.
Yes, my cousin. Oh, I haven't talked to my cousin Peter in who knows how long, but he's still around. He's still, hanging in there. But yeah, I mean that was a pretty good discussion. Scott, thank you so much for coming on. Feel free to plug anything else you want to. And the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. So if anyone would like to know more, we've got a very robust social media program. There's Facebook. I have two accounts on Facebook. One is Twisted Tales. Twisted Tales is the company that I actually formed to be able to take this on a larger scale, to be able to help others that have had trauma from paranormal and horror experiences, to be able to do that. So that's Twisted Tales. The other Facebook is Scott Wells Author, which also has some additional information. Instagram is Twisted Tales Author. YouTube, Twisted Tales Author. TikTok is also Twisted Tales Author. And then there's Substack. Substack, there's two types of ways that that people can follow and get more information. There's a free subscription, and Substack is official Twisted Tales. And as part of that, there's I continually post information about the story. I just recently posted a video about, I was back in town where this happened, and I went to the site of the Ouija house, and I did a video of showing where it actually is. So there's some backstory, some information. If they choose to do a paid subscription, that information gets more haunted, more deeper. I'm posting backstories of each of the characters in the story. Also with the Kickstarter campaign, there's 2 weeks left for that. The Kickstarter campaign is, the short film is called Marked. We'd love to be able to get that made and get as many people involved as possible, so we can continue this conversation and help get this conversation into more of the public domain, to where we can not only to build our community, but support our community in all aspects. And then there's my website, scottwellsauthor.com. It has more information about not only Marked by the Ouija, but also, you mentioned Phantom Ranch, which is another crazy, twisted story. I'm one of those people that and it's been this way all my life. It took me a while to understand it, but I embrace it now, that crazy, twisted things happen to me. And once I get past the trauma, they turn into amazing, amazing stories. Phantom Ranch is, I'll just give you a quick cliff notes. That is a story about when I was backpacking in the Grand Canyon, and I ran into a serial killer. I did not know he was a serial killer, and he tried to kill my friend and I because he wanted my friend's wife. And wow. I ended up going, years and years later, I ended up going to, he eventually got caught. He's Robert Durst. He eventually got caught when he killed the trial that he killed Susan Berman. I was at that trial. And so Phantom Ranch is about that experience and that film, that screenplay, and also the book. And then there's another one that deals with Juneteenth, that experience that just happened to me last Thanksgiving. That is nuts and crazy. So I've got a lot of true Twisted Tales coming up, and if anyone wants to stay in tune with that and keep updated, any of the social media or the website is a good place to do it. And thank you guys. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to share this story and to be able to talk about it. I agree. I love having conversations and deep conversations and good questions, because I think the more we talk about it, the more it helps people understand and make a more educated decision on if they truly want to risk playing with the board or not.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Scott, for coming on. I'll definitely have to have you back on because I want to know more about Robert Durst.
Crazy, isn't it? It's nuts.
Yeah. I think he recently died a few years ago.
He did.
He passed away.
I was actually at the trial, and so I believe that there are one, if not two more victims that the police don't know about.
Yeah.
And I believe I know where one is buried.
Oh boy.
And at the trial, I told a bailiff, I shared that with him, and he said, "Stay here. I'm going to go get something for you to talk to." And 30 minutes later, he came back and he said, "I don't have anyone here." He said, it was Friday afternoon. He said, "Come back Monday morning." Well, COVID hit, and there was Monday morning, and I ended up moving from Los Angeles to Texas, and so it's a crazy twisted story. You know, I saw a side of him that has never been reported before. So it's a crazy story, and I'd love to come back. You know, and if any of your listeners have any questions, or about the Ouija board, or if they have anything, I would be thrilled to come back and have another deep conversation with the two of you at any given point.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. We'll definitely schedule something because I'm definitely intrigued, and I'm pretty sure Megan would love to, to hear more about Mr. Robert Durst.
Love a bit of true crime.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. I have this vivid memory of him being wheeled into the courtrooms with his oxygen tank and stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, I know exactly who that is.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Did you guys watch The Jinx?
No, I didn't.
That's really what did him in. That he was a live mic in the bathroom, and he went in and he said, "They got you, Bob. You killed him. You killed them all." And that was one of the nails in the coffin. The other evidence that came out during the trial was just jaw dropping. I mean, and for me, my experience when I met him, I thought he was, here's this really cool, eccentric guy. It takes me right back to that. But it's another story that it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe.
Awesome. Well, we'll leave it at that because I want the listeners to definitely want to tune in on that one whenever we get to it. But all right, guys. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. Scott, Megan, thank you guys so much for being here. Megan, is there anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
Very, very quick historical nugget. So going back to the history of the Ouija board, apparently it's been pretty cursed from the time they started popularizing it. So William Fuld, who was one of the initial investors with the Kennard Novelty Company out of Baltimore, he eventually took over the company, and he was one of the specific individuals who was instrumental in marketing the Ouija board as just a harmless parlor game that anyone could play. He died after making millions from the Ouija board when he fell from the roof of his factory when a railing gave way.
Wow.
And he died of his injuries. The incident gained notoriety at the time because Fuld had previously claimed that the board itself had instructed him to build that specific factory.
Oh boy.
So there you go.
Them coincidences, you guys know how those get me. That's like the only thing that really scares me is coincidences. For whatever reason, it frightens me that there is coincidences for some reason. I mean, ghosts don't scare me, if horrible visuals don't scare me, but it's coincidences that get me, which is weird.
It is weird.
Yes.
It's like Annabelle, when Annabelle just recently, she
Yeah.
went. Yeah, that just hit the news. I mean, I agree. Coincidence, that is
Yeah.
something to be scared of.
It is. I mean, because that's just one of those things that we don't. It's not really supernatural. It's just something that randomly occurs, and sometimes it occurs in weird times. But yeah, I mean, we can stay here forever. But yeah, we gotta let Mr. Scott go. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. We'll definitely have Scott Wells back on, and he'll tell us some more crazy stories. But until then, guys, you all have a good night.
Do you love the strange, the unexplained, and the downright terrifying? Horrifying History takes you on a chilling journey into the dark corners of the past, where history and horror collide. From haunted places and ghostly legends to unsolved mysteries and terrifyingly true stories, you will uncover the twisted facts that history books leave out. Who were the real monsters behind infamous legends? What dark secrets lie buried in the pages of history? Every episode, we reveal the eerie truths that will send shivers down your spine. Are you brave enough to face the darkness? Horrifying History, available now wherever you listen to your podcasts. But don't wait for too long. The past might just come looking for you. Listen if you dare.